In the dry, arid lands of northern Kenya lies an irreplaceable jewel, Lake Turkana. But now, the lake is in mortal danger.
The Ethiopian government's been embarking on these incredibly ambitious development schemes, quite often funded by international donors. In 2011, then Prime Minister Meles Zenawi announced a massive transformation of the Omo Valley. He was going to become this industrial powerhouse. So he proposed a cascade of dams, some of Africa's largest dams, and at the time, 200,000 hectares of sugar plantations irrigated by waters from the Omo River. 90% of the water in Lake Turkana comes from the Omo River. So if the Omo River ceases to be a major source of input for Lake Turkana, the potential is that Lake Turkana could dry up.
Kenya will be a major customer for the hydropower generated by the latest mega dam, Gibe 3, already filling a vast reservoir. If these projects continue unchecked, scientists say that in 30 years, the lake will recede by 80 kilometers, drop by over 40 meters, and shrink to 2 small pools.
It's often quite surprising to us how little is known about these issues that is going to destroy the livelihoods of 300,000 Kenyans.
Years ago, construction began on the Gibe 3 dam without studying the environmental impact. When Ethiopia finally did an environmental and social impact assessment, it never looked at the impacts on Kenya, especially from the plantations. The manager of Ethiopia's Environmental Protection Authority said that criticism of the dam was based on ignorance. In any case, Ethiopian Electric Power Company went ahead and signed a contract with Italian company Salini Costruttori to build the dam. Have been lobbying against the Gibe 3 dam since 2009. Local NGO Friends of Lake Turkana even won a court case against the Kenya government's electricity transmission company Ketraco, who were ordered to make public the agreements with Ethiopia and to carry out independent environmental impact assessments. Neither of these documents have been released to date.
In 2009, the African Development Bank commissioned me to carry out a hydrological study of the lake, and they were aware that actually none of the studies that had been done to date had even considered Kenya.
Before the studies were completed, however, the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China stepped in to fund the controversial dam.
Gibe 3, it doesn't consume water. What it does is it captures the water, it stores it, and then it releases it in a controlled fashion. It became very obvious that the Gibe 3 dam would impound the water that's flowing down the river to fill its reservoir. If you take that water out of a system, the lake must fall. So my study showed that the lake would fall 2 meters as a consequence of just the filling of the Gibe 3 reservoir.
Sasa yote mpaka ndani ya hizo mkoma were underwater. Since December last year, all this water has disappeared. So you can imagine how much water has been lost.
The Lake Turkana system is a natural hydrological system which responds to floods. The fisheries breeding is triggered by floods. During the filling period of last year, it had been planned to release an artificial flood to compensate for the lack of the natural floods that would occur. That did not happen. It wasn't released. If you remove those floods, if you stop that flow of nutrients into the lake, you will affect the ecology and the fisheries of the lake.
The most important Kenyan destination. You have to build hotels, to build lodges, to build roads. But nobody else in the world can offer something that could compete.
But Lake Turkana's great tourism potential will never be realized if Kenya allows these waters to just drain away.
The shallow areas of Lake Turkana, those are the areas that are first going to be dried up. The islands would no longer be islands.
The fossil sites will always be there. Fossil sites love dry climate. It'll only be known for the fossils, nothing else. And that, I think, is a terrible tragedy.
And already marginalized people will fall deeper into poverty. Famine and conflict will increase, and hundreds of thousands of people will be displaced. The region's climate will become increasingly harsher and hotter. Winds could spread potentially toxic dust from the newly exposed lakebed, poisoning people and farmland, even in the counties far from the lake.
Many of the impacts that we're contemplating are speculative, but we do have precedents because we've seen what's happened to the Aral Sea.
The Aral Sea in the deserts of Central Asia was once the world's fourth largest lake when the rivers feeding the Aral Sea were diverted to irrigate Uzbekistan's massive cotton farms. The sea began to shrivel up, marked by deadly levels of salinity that have killed off most of the fish and the people's livelihoods. Even closer to home, Lake Chad used to be the Sahel's largest lake, but 30 years of global warming, hydropower, and irrigation projects have shrunk the lake by more than 80%. The predictable result? Massive fish and livestock deaths, famine, rising conflicts, and forced migration.